Approximately 1 million years ago, our ancestors took control of fire. And this development changed the way that we socialize as human beings. Our ancestors would gather around fires to eat, to stay warm, and to, most importantly, tell stories. Yes, they would tell stories about what had happened during the day as a way of teaching, as learning. They would tell stories as a way of forecasting future events. And they would tell stories just to entertain each other. Fast forward 1 million years, and here we are together in this room. And storytelling is still on the agenda. Think of Netflix, think of novels, and think of some of the best presentations you have ever seen. They all incorporate storytelling. You can literally say that our brains are programmed for story. Story is in our DNA. Now, I remember being an 8-year-old boy, being in my grandparents' house. My grandpa would pick me up and put me on his knee, and he was a great storyteller. Yes. I remember the plush pink carpets and how he would always dress so smartly in his tie and his V-neck. And as he put me on his knee, he owned the room. He had a way of speaking that when he spoke, people listened. And I remember thinking at this point, this is something I'm interested in. This is something I want to follow in his footsteps. So welcome, Creative Morning community. It's so good to be here with you today. How is everyone doing? Good. Good. Yeah, look, that was a semi-good, wasn't it? It's cold, it's dark, it's winter. We know we're in for this now for the next 7 months. But it's nice to see some fresh, friendly faces in the audience, also some familiar faces as well. So thank you all for being here. My name's Adam Sismey, and I'm going to be talking to you today about storytelling, and specifically about the power of personal stories in presentations. Now, I normally introduce myself as being a trainer, a coach, and a surprisingly tall person. And I think that's all I need to say for now. I think this is more about you today. So let's jump into this. I would like to start by inviting you thinking about this question. What is a story? So I'm going to invite you to turn to someone sitting next to you. Maybe there's three people again together. I'm going to give you 3 minutes now to talk about what a story is. Then we'll have some sharing within the group and harvest the information that comes up. So I'll let you know when 3 minutes is up. Please feel free to start. I'm curious, what came out of your conversations? Does anyone feel brave enough to put their hand up and tell me what they consider the story to be? Who wants to kick this off? There's no right or wrong answers now. There's got to be someone. Yes.
So when we discuss that it's important to learn something about that person at the beginning, and then to be surprised about something, or whatever happened, to have this little twist. And then the last part is that it evokes emotion. We either can connect or relate or...
There's no pen that works, but we'll get... Okay.
So it's like a curve of like actions, learning, when the twist, surprise, and then the unexpected ending.
And so I'm going to write down curve because I think that's a really interesting word that you said there. Thank you so much.
Surprise, curve, and G.
And fee and an emotion. Okay. All great words. Thanks so much. Anyone else got anything different?
It's a way to influence each other's brain.
Say that again.
It's a way to influence each other's brain.
Influence each other's brain. I'm going to put down brain. Thank you.
And it's the thread that connects cultures, people, and places.
Bonus points for you for bringing the keyword thread. You've done my work for me, to be honest. So that's like a thread. Thank you. Who to go to next? Let's take someone over this side.
Yes. It's about the relationship between the storyteller and the receiver. Okay. And how maybe they adjust to each other, or how they explore different areas of the story. But there is always this common ground and establishment of some kind of
So it's like a co-creation, would you say? We're gonna need another board, just so you know what I mean. Yeah. Okay. Let's take another one over from this side, and then maybe if anyone wants to hang around afterwards, we can discuss it as well a bit more.
Entertaining.
Entertaining.
And the details.
The details. I like that. Details. This is the problem being a surprisingly tall person. It needs to get really low. Details and entertaining. Okay, I can't read any of that, which is very useful. All right. But if I was going to summarize the story get to the essence of it, this would what I would say. At the very core, story is change over time. So in a story, you need to start at point A, and then you need to get to point B, but be in a completely different position. So as humans, we are fascinated by change. Our brains love change. I think change gives us hope for a better day tomorrow, to become a better person. And when change is going on, there's neural activity in our brains. It's like an addiction, like chocolate, sex, drugs. We want this change. So change is core in storytelling. Someone mentioned before curve. It came from over here. Who said curve? It's you. Fantastic. So one way to kind of show you this thing of change is to draw a diagram, and I'm going to draw you something now. We're going to look at the shape of a story, because there are universal shapes to stories. So let's find the pen that works. Where did that other pen go? Have I lost that somewhere? Because there was one that was working. Here it is. So we've got an axis now. And if we go up here, we've got good fortune. And down here, we've got bad fortune. Good fortune is health, wealth, success, love. Bad fortune is death, misery, pain, sorrow. Okay? And on this axis, we've got B and we have E. B is for beginning and E is for electricity. Obviously. Okay? I'm going to plot on here some shapes. Let's take a typical universal story. Let's do the boy meets girl scenario. So you've got just an average person, an everyday thing going on. He's here. He meets a girl. He loses a girl. He regains the girl. Okay? The key thing is to always end up higher than where they started. Doesn't need to be a boy, doesn't need to be a girl, but you get the story. Let's look at now another classic one, a problem story. The man falls into a hole. Doesn't need to be a man, doesn't need to be a hole, but so let's slightly above average. Man walking along, he falls into a hole, he gets out of hole. Similar shape, right? Now this shape isn't copyrighted. Every time someone delivers this shape of a story to Hollywood, they give them $1 million. So if you want to have a go, take your chance to. Let's look at another story. Let's start down here, the bad fortune. So, and you might know this story. It's a girl. She's just lost her mother. Not only that, but her mother is dead and her father remarries an evil woman. You might know this story. Not only that, there's 2 evil step-sisters, okay? And she's working hard. She's making them look good, so she's all the way down here. Then what happens? Fairy stepmother comes along, right? Gives her stockings, gives her a dress, gives her a mode of transport. Things are looking up. She gets to the ball and meets the prince. Then what happens? Who knows the next part of the story?
That's holding over it.
Yeah, she needs to get home before midnight. Boo! She goes all the way down. And then, at some point, She meets the prince again, the slipper fits, and she achieves off the scale happiness, right? So what we're looking at here is this change, this notion of change is from this point all the way down here, where she started her journey, to here. This is the change we're talking about. This is what we need to see in a story. Otherwise, it's just like having a conversation with your spouse or your parent, which is linear. And then, when they say, oh, what happened today? You say, well, this happened, and then this happened, and then I did that, and then that happened. That's just a shopping list of events, isn't it? That isn't a story, but for the story, we need this shape. Okay. Let's move on. So we need some essential elements for a great story. There are so many elements, but I'm just going to share 5 of them with you today. The first one, and probably the most obvious one, is a relatable character. This is someone that we can root for, someone that we like, we want to go on their journey, someone that we want to get behind, we care about. This character is always, well, quite often, someone that's imperfect like ourselves. Let's look at some relatable characters. Cinderella. She's struggling. She's suffering with loss. She's working hard. This is relatable. Even someone like Homer Simpson is a relatable character because who here isn't sometimes impulsive and lazy and forgetful? Right? Sometimes we all just want to be Homer Simpson. And also in this film, Rocky, he's an aspiring boxer. He's a no-hoper. He's fighting nobodies for $40 a night. He's running the streets. He's kind of doing dodgy deals on the streets to make ends meet. They're all relatable characters. So your story should start. When you're integrating a story into a presentation, of course, you're telling your story. It should start about you. But by the end, the audience should realize, this is about me. I can see myself in this story. And it's a little bit like holding a mirror up to the audience and going, I can see myself in this story. So let's move on. Let's have a look at what else we need for a great story. We need tension. We can also call this authentic emotion. Now, this is the character's tension. It's their hopes, their wishes, their dreams, their fears. We want to know what's going on inside their head, their inner monologue. And without that, us as an audience, we can't share empathy with them. We need to know their struggle. Then we can buy into their problem. The third thing, and this is probably more of an obvious one, we need a significant moment in the story. That moment where everything changes. The hero enters the cave and there is no going back. This significant moment in the Rocky film, for those of you who know it, is the moment he gets the opportunity to fight for the World Heavyweight Championship of the world. He gets into training. He starts taking it seriously. He starts building relationships with his trainer and his girlfriend, Adrian. And it's at this point that we as the audience get drawn in and we want to know those 3 magic words. What happens next? We're committed to the story. We want to see it through. The fourth thing that we need today is not sandwiches, because you've all got those, but specific details. Now, specific details help to bring your audience, to draw them into your world. You start using details that are relatable to your audience. Storytelling is a co-creation process. I start telling you my story, and in your mind, you start visualizing your version of that. It's a magical format, storytelling. And I like to use this as an example. So you can either say we had lunch together, or you could say we met for soggy tuna sandwiches. Already that starts adding flavor and a richness. Or better still, we met for soggy tuna sandwiches and shared a packet of Dorito crisps. giving you that flavor right. We start building it. We start creating that world. So I think specific details. And this was another thing that was said before, I believe. Details. Remind me, who said that? Wonderful. Thank you. And the fifth thing is a resolution, a satisfying resolution to the story. Now, this doesn't mean that we need to have a complete closure in the story, but in terms of the character's authentic emotion and their challenge, that we need to see some kind of closure there. We need to complete the story, a bit like I've shown you now on this diagram. We need to have had some kind of ending that's satisfying to us. As though stories should be about transformation and not just information. The main character needs to be in a different place by the end of the story. So what are the benefits of using storytelling in presentations? Well, again, there are many, and for the purpose of the day, I'm just going to share 3 of them with you. The first one is that it helps to captivate your audience. It draws your audience in. There's something human in us that when someone starts to tell a story, we want to lean in. Tell me more about that. And in a world where there's so many distractions, so many options, technology, we need to figure ways of grabbing people's attention. And storytelling is very powerful in that respect. And given the nature and the curve, the shape of the story, that helps to keep people on board. Second one is empathy. One of the great strengths of storytelling is tell a story and you can transport anyone from where they're based, just someone on a chair, to a new world. Now, isn't that fantastic? We were talking about this co-creation process. The storyteller starts to talk, the audience starts to visualize what's going on. And if you want to have an impact when you're presenting, which I think you always do, you need to make your audience feel something. And storytelling allows us to feel something because with the mirror neurons, the research shows that actually the person who's had the experience, it's a bit similar when you actually tell the story of it as well. You can actually start feeling something in your body. So it's very impactful. And thirdly, story is very sticky. And what I mean by that is it's very memorable. It helps your audience to remember your key message. We often want our audience to leave with our key message, right? And story is a much better way than statistics and graphs and charts. If you think back to a film you've recently watched or a novel you've recently read, you can probably remember the main character, the plot, and that moment where everything changes. So what stories should we use? We have fairy tales, we have fables, we have stories about other people, you hear stories about famous people. No, our most impactful stories are our stories. We know these stories better than anyone else. I'm curious to ask, who here believes they have story-worthy stories to share? Put your hand up if you think that's you. You should all have your hands up in the air right now. You all have story-worthy stories. I can guarantee you all have tens, if not hundreds, of story-worthy stories. We either don't notice them, we don't observe them, or we feel they're not good enough. They're not dramatic enough. But it's really the small moments that are impactful. The biggest stories are often about the small events. So if I told you about a story when I was involved in a car crash and had a near-death experience, it might make an interesting story, but unless you've been through it yourself, you're probably not going to connect with it. But if I told you a story about when I was 8 years old, standing in a school playground all on my own, with my new school shoes on, feeling nervous, and I'd just been bullied, because I was the tallest kid in the playground. That's probably more relatable. Maybe not the height, but the fact of being bullied or being in a position of feeling vulnerable. So don't neglect the small moments in our lives because they are the most impactful. So how do we find these stories of ours? Well, we need to slow down and we need to start acknowledging what goes on in our day. And we all have these stories. We need to start building a story bank so that when we want to incorporate a story into a presentation, we have them ready. And for those people that feel like, what are those stories? These, I would say, are little moments in our lives that we keep close to our heart. They're maybe the small traumas that we carry with us from childhood or adulthood. You know, these kind of moments that have changed us forever, they're the moments we want to dig down to and pull out. And sometimes it's useful to have a framework to find these stories. So if anyone here today wants a framework, I'm happy, connect with me after the talk. I'll be happy to send you my storytelling framework to help you start identifying your stories. Before I say thank you and goodbye, I think there's going to be a Q&A session. I want to set you some homework for the weekend. Actually, I want to set you some homework for life. You're not getting away that easy. This weekend, find some time and start thinking about those moments that have changed you. Start creating a story bank. And then on, each day forward, your homework for life is to spend a couple of days at the end of each day and jot down your most story-worthy moment. In a world where we're saying, time's running away from us, we don't have enough time, and days turn to weeks and weeks turn to months, and we think, what the hell has happened this year? This homework for life will give you a new approach to showing appreciation for your day. Just take a couple of moments, the most story-worthy moment, jot it down, and who knows, these small insignificant moments might end up being big and impactful for you in your presentations. Thank you. So what